A question. Many musicians believe that the instrument cable and the speaker cable end up influencing the tone from a technical standpoint. Does the cable really?
Rabbit, 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 rabbit. Is the hunting cable different from the guitar cable?
No, it's different.
But let's start from there.
Connection cable. Signal cable, go ahead. Let's talk about pedalboard cables or instrument cables.
It can also be an instrument cable because there's that thing about capacitance, whether the cable tip is gold or not. Oh, but is this gold thing not gold? It's like the wood of the guitar.
Yeah, but it exists.
Eric Johnson says he can tell the difference if he plugs the guitar with a gold-plated plug or not.
But then, as I said, it's all in each person's head, right?
Yeah, what's the deal? Eric Johnson, he's also using batteries for volts. In the pedal, he's also using batteries for volts. No, but that's just a quirk.
That's just a quirk.
There's no, we can, if you play with a cable, wear the plug, right? The tip.
Yeah, whether it's gold-plated. And is the jack on his guitar gold-plated too?
Look, that's a good question, huh?
Well, these questions are impossible to answer. And the 20-meter cable, because of the capacitance.
That's true. That's a fact. The longer it is, the greater the capacitance.
Every cable has a capacitance number per meter or per foot.
Was it Volga who used the giant cable?
No. Wasn't it Hendrix who inspired that spiral there? Steve Havagan too.
But guys, that was what was available at the time. One of the secrets of his tone wasn't just the two. It wasn't him, right? It was the cable, right? It was the cable. It's that he used, just buy a 30-meter cable and you'll play the same. He used impulse and response on the...
No, but seriously.
Higher capacitance will steal your tone, especially the highs, right? Yes, but it will give a little boost in the midsy. What it's taking from the high end, it will give a little boost in the mids. All right.
It doesn't give a boost. Actually, when you remove the frequency, what's left is the boost to right.
But it starts to resonate here before it goes down.
So there's a response. Then
it gives a resonance before it fades.
There are some cables I've seen, I don't know which brand, that even have a capacitor between to increase. Yes.
Look at that. That B.B. King's guitar, Lucille, has a switch here that, among other things, lets you change the capacitor that would be in parallel with the cable. It creates resonances inside there.
But, for example, how much of this treble loss and this mid boost is actually noticeable?
Oh, it's noticeable? Yeah, it's noticeable, right? Above 8 meters of cable, 10 meters of cable, you can already start to notice it clearly. If you take a 2-meter cable, the same brand of cable and plug. Okay, let's compare equals. You take 2 meters of a Mogami cable and 10 meters of a Mogami cable, plug your guitar directly into the amplifier, you will feel a loss. I understand a little bit. It's noticeable, but it's minimal. Nothing that you can't compensate for on the amplifier by adjusting the knob a little.
Now let's bring this up, then combine this with the people who say true bypass is what matters. No, there are people who say, no, the pedal has to be true bypass. Then the guys go there, plug in 10 pedals, a bunch of little cables. Then there's the cable that goes to the system. The cable that goes to the amplifier, it becomes more noticeable.
The true bypass. What did you say is the legacy?
Cursed legacy.
Cursed legacy? Cursed legacy. The true bypass is demonic. It's demonic. I'll explain why. Speak. Let's go. You plugged in. Unless, my theory, okay, this is theory. Unless you solder your cable directly to the wire of the capacitor of the guitar pickup. Okay, you don't have a plug, no jack. It goes straight. You soldered it and you enter. Open your amplifier and solder directly to the circuit input without going through any jack. To me, that's a true bypass. You have the signal directly from the source receiving the signal to the source going without connectors. Without connectors. From the moment you put the connector in my mind, it already messed everything up. The connector is one metal touching another. No matter how much pressure there is, you understand? It's no longer a continuous wire.
Besides adding a potential point of failure, which can happen.
Exactly.
You are cutting that connection that would be direct. Just like, for example, the adapter we use here with the cameras. For, I don't know, full HDMI to mini HDMI, there is a point of contact where
And if it's not clean and everything, it will cause interference. But look at the issue of the buffer, of the cursed legacy. The buffer recovers all that wrongdoing that was done. Why? Does the oldest buffer have this bad reputation? The buffer has a bad reputation because the buffers of the old boss were not 9V and they were 9V.
Yes, that too.
You can't really call a 9V buffer a buffer.
You can definitely, if what is coming in is a low signal,
If it's a Les Paul played with energy, 9V won't cut it. Exactly. 9 volts won't cut it exactly, no.
so this theory of true bypass, from the moment you have a switch that is alternating between the signal here or the signal there, which is a contact switch that is even more fragile internally than a jack, a plug in the jack, which has much more pressure. For me, it no longer fits. It no longer fits the...
Okay, do you put a buffer in your pedal boards?
I advise everyone who builds a pedal board with me to put a buffer at the input and output, or at least a buffer at the input to already...
Do you make the buffer there?
I have the dual buffer. I specifically made a dual buffer for you to use at 2 specific points on the pedal board, you see. So that's what I advise, because I'm not the true bypass guy. So if you research Bob Bradshaw, who is the god of electronics in the United States, of musical electronics in the United States.
Buffer.
Buffer. Pete Cornish, who is the god of musical electronics, mostly in England. Buffer. Understand? There's no...
Well, it's that thing, right? If these guys who are references are going down this path, it's because there must be something there that makes sense in what they're advocating, right? The guy is going down that path. No, man, buffer, buffer, buffer. So it makes sense to use the buffer.
You set up the boards for the clients, right? Why do you choose to make the connecting cables between the pieces? Why do you make the cable? Solderless cable is better than soldered cable. Let's stir up the controversy.
Solder influencing breakage. Let's go. The science behind pedal board assembly is in organization, space utilization, and custom cables. What is the advantage of having custom cables? Less possibility of interference and tangles, etc. Having an organization, clean, right? Clean, a visual organization and everything. What complicates things would be if the person wants to swap pedals, because the cables will be at a precise length, unless the connection of the pedal they want to swap is the same, or they will have a problem there to make it work. But it is assumed that the person who is going to invest money to set up a system will not want to keep swapping pedals. They have already decided what they want and everything. So the advantages of custom cables are these. You can make them with cables. I don't like making cables without soldering. No, you don't like cables without soldering.
I don't like cables without soldering. The cables you make, they don't take up any space, right?
No, it's because I manually rubberize the plugs, then we put the picture there to show. I do the manual rubberizing of the plugs to save space, but...
Oh, you don't use the plug casing.
I don't use the plug casing. I do the shielding system and manually rubberize.
That ends up taking up less space than that pancake plug, right?
Exactly. Nowadays, we have very good plugs. There's is it called Steve? What's the brand of your plug?
Do you think that's it? No?
No, not ST-Com. It's not the Com, no. It's an imported one now. It's square like this, flat.
Is it the one you gave me? You gave me 2. Got them fair.
Then it was from Leo. I gave it in short.
You got them at the fair?
That Argentine one from the fair. That one is good too. They're making some really thin ones these days. And there's a very thin flat cable that's really good if you want to reduce space between the pedals. But the issue with the cable quality, capacitance that we were talking about, it depends. They sit down on the final tone. From the moment you put a buffer at the input and one at the output, I think you pretty much solve the cable capacitance problem.
And tell me, in your pedal board setups, another cursed legacy, for example, the professional audio system is all 19-inch rack, period. So you're going to have a rack that will fit everything there. The height will vary, but the device has a predictable size. Pedal, each one has a different size. It's madness. How do you handle that? Do you have to keep planning, rehearsing? Is that it?
The part I like the most is precisely making the best use of the space. It's a little Tetris you do, regardless if the bigger pedal is the last in the chain. That's what I was going to ask.
If it's in the logic, you can take it out of the logic and make a cable for it to reach there.
And that would be the advantage of making custom cables. Exactly. That you don't need to place the pedals in the series you're going to connect them. You can arrange the best layout to make the most of the pedal board space and make the cables the length you want. Oh, but then there's a cable on the pedal board where my pedal board is 80 centimeters and one pedal is here. That needs to connect to the pedal over here, so there will be one cable urbane going and then another coming back to the other. That's 2 meters of cable. It will increase the capacitance. No, we included the buffer precisely to avoid this kind of loss, so you can have 20 meters of cable in your pedal board running internally and you won't have any loss.
Okay, but another question. When setting up the board, or when you set it up, what precautions do you take with electrical power? I see people putting the power strip under the pedals. I see boards where the pedal board input is right next to the AC. How
does that work, man? There are some basic rules, and I learned a bit from you. Especially about grounding, right? Your grounding lesson from the course you gave, and the student about AC and DC and everything said that you shouldn't place the AC parallel to the audio signal that you will have.
Running together.
Electromagnetic interference.
Then you end up picking up the noise and taking it to the...
It resets. Exactly. So I would always advise placing the AC or the AC input, which comes from the 110 outlet at one end of the board, separate from the connection jacks that go to the amplifier. So I standardize on the boards I manufacture the AC, unless the person is left-handed and everything needs to be reversed, but for right-handed. Standard, the AC and power supply on the left and all the connection in, out, send, and return. If it's the 4-cable method, all on the right, as close as possible to where the guitar input is. That would be the main thing in any power supply. A recurring problem that existed in the past, nowadays it doesn't anymore because most power supplies are switched. But large transformers, the power supplies with transformers, people used to place the power strip on the outer top of the crybaby. And they would put a transformer there to power the whammy or something.
Beautiful, right?
That transformer, when you clicked the crybaby, since it has a coil, it picked up all the noise. Did you see that? I corrected it several times and...
People have noise issues.
When I turn on my Pride Baby, there's noise, even with a battery. It was making noise. Yeah, because the
power supply there.
The coil of the Pride Baby the transformer was inducing in the coil of the Pride Baby.
But there are pedals that classically end up causing noise in the chain. You end up isolating, using a separate power supply for it. You isolate it, right?
No, that's when you're combining analog with digital, right? And that, it's a high frequency. If you're sharing a power supply, some pedals don't share a power supply.
It's the kind of knowledge that only those with experience. Yeah, so the guy sets it up alone at home. Won't figure this out. He won't know why there's a problem. It gives tap and doesn't want to go now.
I respond to 3 to 4 emails per week with noise, issues on the pedal board, and I usually solve them through emails.
And how many of those problems that arrive there? Do you ask the guy, for example, to send you a photo?
Deposit into my account. No. It's a question about pics.
To send you a photo of the board, then you see that nice power supply in daisy chain connecting a bunch of stuff.
That's right. I usually ask for the photo and correct it there.
Then you see the daisy chain. Throw it away.
That's what I did. Last year I did a lot with the crybabies, right? People would place the power strip right on top of the crybaby, which is a space that usually remains on the board where you don't have a pedal that you can put on the second level to step on. So the guy would already place the AC there. Genius, right? And then there was the transformer power supply. Back in the day, there were those transformer Bose power supplies, right? And then everything would induce. So I standardized the responses that the guy had to give a 30 centimeter or radius around the crybaby to place any transformer or power supply. From then on, because I did this experiment in practice, right? I took the transformer, left the crybaby on, left it here generating noise, and started moving. The transformer away in all directions, and I...
A 30 cm radius no longer induces. Then the guy says, my board doesn't have 30 cm. What do I do? Arrange 30 centimeters from the board in exchange for the board. You took it out there? You didn't mention it there?
Put the crybaby outside the pedal board. I've said this too.
Yeah, leave outside.
Put crybaby outside pedal board.
Guy comes, takes out crybaby, sets it upside.